All right, we are in Ayodhya Kanda. Let me pull up my document. All right. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kujantam Ram Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam Manojavam Marutatuल्य Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayutha Mukhyam Sriramadutam Shirasa Namami Apadam Apahartaram Dataram Sarvasampadam Lokabhiramam Shriramam Bhuyo Bhuyo Namamyaham Dakshine Lakshmano Yasya Vame Cha Janakatmaja Purato Marutir Yasya Tam Vande Raghunandanam. Can you hear the noise of the tool or the carpentry work in the background?
Not really.
Okay, I feel like I'm
Oh,
sitting in India right now on a Saturday, Sunday morning. Somebody or the other has their furniture being repaired, and you hear this carpentry work going on. That's how I'm feeling right now. All right, so we're going to focus on chapter 75 of Ayodhya Kanda. Usually, I cover multiple chapters, but since it is about Bharata, such an amazing personality, I want to slow it down and sort of get into some specifics to appreciate Bharata. Because in Aranya Kanda, and even in other Kandas, we hear a lot about Lakshmana per se. And in Sundara Kanda, we hear Hanuman a lot, about Hanuman a lot. But there are only certain sections where we get to hear Bharata. And Bharata is the Bhagavata in the Ramayana sort of paradigm of, if Ramachandra is the Supreme Lord, Lakshmana identifies pure bhakti, then Bharata epitomizes a pure bhakta, and Shatrughna epitomizes service to a pure devotee. So discussing about a pure bhakta is called Bhagavatam. So this is Bhagavatam in Ramayana, if you will. But we want to see Bharata's heart in detail if we can. Of course, I don't have the capacity to go in detail, but to the degree that I can. Bharata is a personality who can't be fathomed. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear that the mind and activities of a pure devotee are not understood by ordinary people or even great people. So Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra na bhujiya. It's not easy to understand or decipher. So here is an attempt, not only an attempt, but at least something that we can see. Another way of looking at it is in National Geographic videos, and I've said this many times, you see an eagle flying fast and then picking up a little animal a goat or a small whatever animal from the ground in a flash, or a fish from the water in a flash and runs away, or a cheetah uh, pursues a deer, an antelope, or a gazelle at great speed, and it all happens in a matter of seconds. But for the full effect of what a fantastic event that is in nature, we always are shown that action in slow motion, where you can see every muscle of the cheetah, its eyes focused on the gazelle's eyes full of fear, and the way the cheetah runs, all of that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to slow it down, and hopefully not in slow motion, so to put you into sleep or anything, but we're going to we're going to look at it frame by frame if we can, to the degree that I can do this. So if there are no objections to that, let's look at chapter 75. Um, 74 ended with Bharata wanting uh, or requesting Kausalya Devi's audience. And so he comes to Kausalya Devi's palace, offers her obeisances, and notices that she is piteously crying. And he himself is completely distraught because he has just gotten the news from his mother, and he has vented uh, his exasperation upon his mother and chastised his mother for uh, perpetrating the most heinous act in the entire Raghu dynasty's history. Generally, as Shuchi brings up for the past couple of weeks, a child doesn't have the authority to chastise yeah, chastise parents or superiors. Generally, someone in an inferior position does not have the authority. The only time such possibility exists of correcting or chiding or admonishing or even chastising is when the inferior person, either by age or by learning, mostly by age, actually is superior in learning and in character. That's the only time. Therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, although Vyasadeva and Narada Muni are sitting there, it is Shukadev Goswami who speaks to Parikshit Maharaj, because in that context, they have determined him to be the rightful or the most suitable person to speak the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Or we see Prahlad Maharaj instructing his father, Matirna Krishne Paratasvatova Mitobhipadyeta Grahavratanam. He's calling his father Grahavrata, which is not a very great title to have. Nasadu Manye Asuravarya Dehinam. Prabhupada translates the king of demons, or the best of demons. Or he instructs his father. So there are many places. Kardama Muni instructing his mother, Devahuti. So in age, one is inferior, but by learning and by character, if they are superior, then they have uh, it's their right and also the proper thing for them to do. Uh, and something when something wrong has happened, not saying anything is also participating in the wrong. But one should do it carefully, assessing one's own standing. But one should say something is sort of the uh, principle. Okay, so with that, Bharata spoke to his mother, has come to meet Kausalya Devi, and unfortunately for him, Kausalya chastises him, or doubts his, and she says, "Oh, you and your mother, or you must now be enjoying the kingdom, or the kingdom is all available for your enjoyment by your mother's wicked and crooked act. So you must now be happy to be the king." So Bharata feels very shattered. Because in this Ramayana, Valmiki Rishi is showing us how Bharata is misunderstood and how he goes about manifesting his fantastic character. So Bharata tells Kausalya Devi, uh, my heart never even went, even once, even in a mustard seed worth. I'm using these embellishments. He hasn't said it, but he says, not even once, even mustard seed worth of a desire did I ever have of being the king of Ayodhya and instead of Ramachandra. Okay. So then this section is called the Bharata Pratigya section. Pratigya is generally we think of it as a promise or a great word of oath. So here Bharata takes an oath. Now this is like Agni Pariksha for Bharata. So the Ramayana is full of Agni Pariksha. Sometimes we see the fire and sometimes we don't see the fire, but we get a sense of the burning in different places. So in this Kanda, Bharata is going through Agni Pariksha by a whole bunch of people, and he comes out glowing in such fantastic sort of ways. Hanuman is put through Agni Pariksha in Sundara Kanda when Sita Devi asks him, "Oh, you say you are the um um, messenger of Lord Ramachandra. Describe Lord Ramachandra to me." And Hanuman, in about 30 some verses, describes Ramachandra's form from head to toe. Now, what Hanuman describes is the visible aspects of Ramachandra's form: his eyes, his nose, forehead, his curly locks of hair, his beautiful lips, the most charming moon-like face, his neck with three lines like that of a conch. And then he starts describing those parts of the body that are not visible generally: his navel, his thighs, his hips, all of that. So Sita Devi, who's the only other person who, in one sense, has this information, uh, is satisfied. Now, the Agni Pariksha for Hanuman is in this section of Sundara Kanda that he has to describe the form in front of Sita Devi, and there cannot be any discrepancy or wrong. Otherwise, she will not trust him. And then Sita, of course, goes through Agni Pariksha literally and figuratively as well in the Yuddha Kanda. So I don't want to get distracted with all that, but you get the frame of it. So when Kaushalya speaks to Bharata like that, he says, if my heart ever hankered in the slightest for this kingdom, and if I ever even once thought of turning into a traitor towards Ramachandra, then let all the lessons that I've learned from my gurus go completely away from me. Let it all be wasted. Now, to say that is not easy because the guru teaches a person how to become free from this body, mind, and false ego in this world. So, the lessons taught by the guru are more valuable than anything that a person can accumulate in one's life. And Bharata says, let all of that go to waste. And then he takes or he makes 38 statements literally that he says, if I've ever done any one of these, then I am ready to go to the lowest of the hellish planets and suffer there. Now, I read through the list. I could not go beyond two or three because somewhere in my life, I have participated in something like this, if not all, many. But Bharata, who's so clearly and loudly with full conviction saying, if I've ever even once done any of these, which means he has never done it. So I'm going to go through that list. First, he said, if I was ever an instrument or a tool or a participant in some wickedness or sinful activity being committed, if I ever participated in any way, I will go to the lowest of hells in this world. Second one, he says, if I ever excreted urine or stool while I was facing the sun. Now, the idea is there are certain directions that this Shastra describes that one should and should not do. But what this gives us insight into is how strictly they lived their lives. Okay, that's the idea. Third, if I ever kicked a sleeping cow. Fourth, if I ever made the servants in the palace or my workmen or laborers uh, overly sweating, means that I've made them work in a way that is not commensurate to their income, or I cheated them of their lawful salary or wages, then I will go to the lowest of the hellish planets. Or the fifth one, if I ever dealt with another king who treats his citizens like his own children, if I've ever dealt wrongly or treacherously with such a king, then I will go to the lowest of hellish planets. And I'm going to stop saying this refrain, but you get the idea. Sixth one, he said, if I ever collected money from the public uh, or, or swindled it for personal use. As a Kshatriya, he has small areas to oversee, and if he ever uh, drew taxes from his subjects and used them for personal gain. Seventh, he says if he ever promised a Brahmana or a saintly person some dakshina, but later said, I'm not going to give it. I don't need to give it to you. Then I will go to the lowest form of hellish condition. So as I'm speaking through this list, hopefully you can think of certain situations either in your own life or that you know of others, or from scripture where these things have happened. And he says, if I ever turned and showed my back, or I turned away in retreat from a battlefield. Because for a Kshatriya, you can never show your back to your enemy. That's the point here. He says, if I ever ate any food without first offering to the Supreme Lord, meaning any kind of non-prasadam. If I ever insulted or reviled is the word, if I ever insulted or spoke in a diminutive manner to my spiritual masters, or if I ever dishonored any elders uh, incorrectly, then I should go to the lowest of hells. 11th one, if I ever betrayed anyone's confidentiality, especially by my friends, when they've said something to me in confidence, and if I've betrayed it, then I should go to the lowest of hellish conditions. 12. If I've ever been ungrateful, or I've never rendered back the kindness or never reciprocated with the kindness shown to me or for any human being. So when I'm speaking as Bharata talking about himself, these are all principles for human beings to live by. Okay. As we can see, just to be a human being, the bar is very high, at least for me. If I've ever been ungrateful to my friends or to anyone who's shown me kindness. 13. If I've ever been devoid of any or all sense of shame and decency. If I've ever spoken, acted that was in a shameful or an indecent manner. Uh, for that matter, any person who wants to commit suicide or wants to kill their father or kill their mother or their brother, that person is fit to go to hell. Therefore, when Arjuna had to fight this war, he had to think so much. He was in such a intense moral dilemma that his whole body, he describes all the trauma his body is going through just at the thought that he has to kill his guru, his uncles, his brothers, his friends. Next, if he's ever acted selfishly in ignoring his friends, relatives, or even servants who are going through a state of poverty. Okay, servants, when they are going through a difficult condition, let's say specifically financially difficult condition, and he as a master um, was selfish and did not take care of them. Uh, if he was ever, if he ever disqualified himself from performing a Vedic sacrifice. So what this means is to perform a Vedic sacrifice, one has to remain pure in one's thoughts and actions. And if one is not, then technically speaking, they're not allowed to do. Of course, one may not tell in public what there is. But Bharata is saying, even if I've ever had a thought that I've disqualified myself from a Vedic rite, which means he has never. He's 17. He says, if I've ever suffered from or cursed anyone to be a barren woman. Or 18, if I've ever slayed any women, children, or old men or old women. Because we know in scriptures, five entities, this is from Bhagavatam also, five entities should always be protected: women, children, elderly, brahmanas, and cows. 19. If I have ever abandoned uh, any servants or personal assistants into a miserable and a cruel fate. That means I've neglected them in such a way that their fate is very, very miserable or cruel, or I did not do anything to help them out. He says, if I've ever sold food, now we distribute prasadam. He says, if I've ever sold articles like honey, meat, or iron, which in our state we may not know what they may mean. I also don't know fully what it means. But the idea of selling food for a profit was never there previously. As a grahastha, one is meant to distribute the Lord's prasadam every day. It's a beautiful Prabhupada story. If I go into it, I may never end on time. But hey, we're not on a time basis anyway. Once a disciple of Prabhupada who just got married asked Srila Prabhupada, now that I am a grahastha, what are my duties? And Prabhupada said, every day, have your wife cook nice bhoga and offer it to the deities. And you go outside your house, clap three times and loudly announce, anybody who's hungry and would like to eat, you're welcome. And then whoever comes, you feed them. And only if no one comes, then you eat. So this devotee was a little confused and he thought maybe Prabhupada did not understand my question. So he asked again. And Prabhupada said, ask your wife to cook and offer to the deity nicely. You go out and make an announcement. If anybody is hungry, please come. Meals are ready or prasadam is ready. So like this, he asked three times. And Prabhupada gave the same answer 3 times. And then he says that he understood that the spirit of a grahastha is to be charitable. And part of that charity is not that they earn their money and cook their food and only eat without distributing to others. So, as much as possible, if one can do it, that's a uh, great activity. So then Bharata says, if I ever killed an enemy who surrendered to me, generally, if someone surrenders, you don't kill them and they're unarmed. So if you're on a chariot and they're on a chariot, then you can fight. If they are not on a chariot, then you cannot be on a chariot. If they have no weapons in their hand, you cannot hold a weapon in your hand. So he says, if I ever killed someone who has surrendered to me, then he says, if I ever have lived like a madman, if I've ever begged from one door to another, etc. 23rd, he says, if I've ever been a slave to my passions, if I've ever indulged in sense enjoyment like wine, women, and gambling, if I've ever violated dharma by these things. Now, they used to drink wine. Kshatriyas specifically could drink wine. What it means is indulgence in it, that they lose all sense of discretion from it. 24th, he says, if I've ever violated the path of dharma and very actively pursued adharma. Or 25, if I've ever given gifts to some unworthy person. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, charity in the mode of ignorance, charity in the mode of passion, and charity in the mode of goodness. And they all look like charity, but only one of them is the actual charity. The others are not. Others are tainted. Charity in the mode of goodness is no charity at all. In fact, it is harm. Charity in the mode of passion is selfish. And charity in the mode of goodness is beneficial to others. Uh, 26, he said, if I ever slept during twilight time. So, twilight is when the sun is about to rise or when the sun is about to set. Both are not suitable times for sleeping. Many of us may not sleep during dusk, but may possibly sleeping during dawn, myself included, happens. But specifically dusk also, it is said one doesn't sleep or do any activity that is uh, supposedly to be done at an auspicious time. Then he said, if I've ever set fire to any houses where people were living, or if I've ever defiled the bed, which means acted in a way that is illicit. 28, he said, if I've never performed my regular uh, uh, prescribed duties like Gayatri, Shraddha, these are all called, in Sanskrit, they're called Nitya and Naimittika dharmas. Nitya dharma is Sandhya Vandanam or Gayatri. Naimittikas are Shraddha, etc. Then he says, if I've ever spoken harshly or unpleasant words, or if I've ever been unclean, muchi. Of course, when you pass stool, one is muchi, would not mean remaining like that. If I've ever acted as a spy or an informer to someone. And then he says, if I've ever neglected a dutiful wife from whom I wanted a pious and lawful child in the proper time. That means one who has been misusing the the luxury and the facility of having a wife, especially when the wife is very dutiful. or if I ever deserted, or if I ever thought of deserting a lawfully married wife, or I pursue someone else's wife. He said, if I ever starved, or any person who's fit to go to a hellish condition is he who ever starves to death his wife, children, or dependents, neglects them basically. He says a person is fit to go to hell if he adulterates or poisons someone's food or drink. You see Duryodhana showing up in all these places, right? Duryodhana, Karna, different people. He says a person is also fit to go to hell if a person is an atheist or who spoils or prevents the worship of the Supreme Lord or the worship of the devotees of the Lord, who interrupts or defiles it. Then he says that a person is fit to go to hell if one does not offer water to a thirsty person, or one who's begging for some water, or if a person milks a cow completely dry, okay, while there is a calf waiting to drink milk. 38, he says, when I'm being a mediator between two persons, or any person who's a mediator or arbitrator between two disputing parties, uh, if I if I'm not neutral, or if a person tells one on the side, if you do this, you can win over your opponent, then uh, that is not considered pious. It is very sinful. So when he went through these 38 items, Kausalya became so moved by Bharata's the standing and making a massive oath that I have never done any of these things, and if anybody who has done any of these, the hell that they deserve, I deserve the hell, same hell. If even in my mind, once I had anything negative about Ramachandra or that I wanted the kingdom. So Kausalya says, Dishyana chalitaha dharmat atma te saha lakshmanaha vatsaha satya pratigyo me satam lokan avapyasi. She says, oh my dear son, fortunately, Dishtya means uh, in some fortunate way, your mind is full with nobility, dharmat, and atma te saha lakshmanaha. And she says you will go to the same destination that Lakshmana will go to, because Vatsa, my dear son, Satya Pratigya, you have made such a vow of truthfulness that you have never even once, even little bit, swerved or digressed from your path of dharma. Then she says, then Valmiki Rishi says, Ityuktva chak चाटमनीय भरतं भ्रातृवत्सलं परिषज्व महाबाहुं रुरोद बृहद भृशदुःखितः. So having said this, ityuktva, uh, where is that word? Ityuktva, yeah, ityuktva chakmaniya. It means she actually made him sit on her lap. Bharatam Bhratruvatsalam, that Bharata, who had such love for his brother, Parishajva, she embraced him very, very tightly. That is called Parishajva. This word comes many times in Ramayana. Later, when Sita Devi also embraces Ramachandra in public, it's called Parishajva. Parishajva Mahabahum, the great mighty armed Bharata, she tightly embraced, and Ruroda, she cried very, very intensely. Bhrusha Dukkhita, because she was very, very much afflicted with grief. And then, Evam Vilapamanasya Dukkha Artasya Mahatmanaha Mohacha Shokat Samroghat Babhuva Lulitam Manaha. Lulitam Manaha means the mind is crushed. Lulitam Manaha, the mind is crushed by uh, Mohacha Shokat, by her bewilderment and her grief. Because she was grieving the separation of Lamachandra, because she was grieving the separation of Dasharath Maharaja, she was bewildered about Bharata's intentions. So she is crying, Evam Vilapamanasya. So she's lamenting it, very deeply lamenting. And then uh, so she is expressed to Bharata how sorry she is for having spoken to him like this. Then that night, we see the condition of Bharata. He is completely distraught as well. So he says, Valmiki says, Lalapyamanasya vichetanasya pranashta buddhe patitasya bhumau muhur nishvashatah cha dirgham sa tasya shokena jagama ratri. So jagama ratri, that night was passed. Tasya shokena, in Tasya is Bharata, shokena, in complete grief. Uh, and he was lamenting. He was lamenting in Vichetanasya. Chetana is his consciousness. And Vichetanasya means he was in an unconscious state. His lamentation was so intense that he became unconscious. Pranashta buddhe, his mind and intelligence stopped working. Patitasya bhumav, he fell to the ground. And mohur, again and again, nishvasataha, like that. He was sighing in grief. Cha dirgham, so very, very long sighs of lamentation. I don't even know how to do it, but you get the idea. Because in Bhagavatam we hear the word muhur aho rasika. Muhur means again, and muhur means continuously. In Sanskrit, when the word is repeated twice, muhur or sadhu, like that, it means again and again, or continuously. So continuously he was heaving huge sighs of sadness and lamentation, and that's how the entire night was spent, how the entire night passed for Bharata. So that's where chapter 75 ends. And next morning, which we're not going to do now, next morning, Bharata decides uh, to do something about it. And that is when he will meet Vasishta Muni and others. So let's see if there are any questions or comments, thoughts, realizations, or silence. Either way is fine. Anything? Nothing? Going at the count of three. If you have no questions or comments. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Until we meet again, let our meditation be on the kind of life and activity or character of Bharata, that next time, as life will offer us many circumstances where any one of these 38 are a situation that we find ourselves in, that we consider carefully and deeply how Bharata lived his life and see if we can emulate. Of course, who am I to say, see if we can emulate, if I myself can emulate what he did, even in a fraction, that would be amazing. But these are amazing and very intense lessons of dharma that are taught by these great personalities. Sri Ramachandra, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrughna, and Sita Devi herself. They go through these very intense situations in life to help their devotees and followers, or all humanity, have a shining example to forever follow. So may we be inspired by Bharata's wonderful character. Thank you. Until we meet again. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.